Princess Lysera of the Varan Empire grew up hearing many stories about strange beings from faraway worlds. Some stories were about giant beasts. Some were about planets full of storms, but the stories she heard the most were about humans. Every child in the Empire knew the tales of human warriors. Teachers explained that humans came from a world full of danger. They survived storms, mountains, wild creatures, and heavy gravity. Because of this, they grew strong, fast, and brave. Some even said humans could see danger before it happened. But to Princess Lysera, these stories were nothing more than jokes. She believed they were old myths, made only to entertain children. Whenever someone talked about humans, Lysera would smile and say, "If they are so strong, why don't they rule the galaxy?" Myths are only myths. Lysera was intelligent and curious, but she trusted science and facts. She liked studying history, stars, and technology. She did not believe in wild legends. So when she heard that humans were coming to her empire for peace talks, she became excited for one reason. She wanted to see these legendary warriors for herself. The Galactic Council planned a meeting with human delegates. A small human team had been invited to the Varan capital. Many aliens felt uneasy because they had never met humans in person, but Lysera looked forward to it. She stood on the balcony of the royal hall as the human shuttle landed gently on the landing pad. Bright lights reflected off the shuttle's silver wings. Royal guards stood tall on both sides, waiting with respectful silence. Lysera leaned forward with a playful smile. Humans were supposed to be mighty warriors. Humans were supposed to be strong beyond reason. Humans were supposed to be creatures shaped by storms and danger. But when the shuttle doors opened, Lysera blinked in surprise. The humans looked normal. They were tall, but not frightening. They wore clean uniforms, not heavy armor. They carried no large weapons. Their faces looked calm and polite, not wild or angry. Lysera almost laughed out loud. "These are the legendary fighters?" she whispered. Her advisor, Elder Tivan, heard her voice. "Princess," he said softly, "do not judge too fast. We know little about humans." Lysera smiled. "I am only observing. They seem peaceful." The human leader stepped forward and greeted the council with a friendly nod. He spoke in clear, respectful words. Lysera listened carefully. Humans spoke with confidence, but not arrogance. Their tone carried both strength and calm. Still, she could not understand why the galaxy feared them. That evening, a special dinner was held for the human guests. Lysera attended with her usual graceful posture. She watched the humans talk politely with council members. They answered questions about Earth, their home world, and their hopes for peace. One human in particular caught her attention, a soldier named Sergeant Kane. He stood quietly behind the human delegation, wearing a simple uniform. He had no weapons except a small sidearm allowed by council rules. He looked alert but relaxed, as if he had seen many dangerous places. Lysera studied him closely. This was supposed to be one of the famous human warriors? He looked normal. Almost too normal. When Kane noticed Lysera watching, he gave a small friendly nod. She nodded back politely, but inside she still doubted everything the legend said. The next morning, the palace alarms rang loudly across the capital. Lysera woke up with a start and rushed to the main hall. Guards hurried everywhere. "Princess," Elder Tivan called. "A rogue war clan has entered our territory." Lysera's face tightened. The war clan was a group known for fast attacks. They rarely listened to diplomacy. They were dangerous and unpredictable. "Why are they here?" Lysera asked. Tivan shook his head. "We do not know, but the council wants to move you to a safe zone immediately." The human delegation also gathered in the hall. Their leader spoke quickly with the Varan officers. Lysera could see concern on everyone's faces. Then Sergeant Kane stepped forward. "If the princess needs protection," he said calmly, "I can escort her." Lysera turned toward him, surprised. "One human?" she asked. "Against a war clan?" Kane did not boast. He did not brag. He simply answered, "I will do my duty." Lysera almost smiled again. Humans were confident, maybe too confident, but the situation was serious. The war clan was already close to the outer districts. The princess had to leave now, Tivan whispered urgently. Princess, we cannot wait. We need any help we can get. Lysera hesitated but finally nodded. Very well. The human soldier may come. Kane simply bowed his head in respect. A small escape group was formed, 5 Varen guards, Elder Tivan, Princess Lysera, and Sergeant Kane. They boarded a fast transport vehicle and headed toward the mountain escape route. The air outside was cold and filled with dust. The sky slowly darkened as clouds gathered. Lysera leaned to the window and watched Kane sitting near the front, scanning every ridge and movement. His eyes were sharp, studying the landscape with silent focus. He did not look like someone who doubted himself. He looked like someone who expected danger. The Varen guards whispered among themselves, "Why is a single human escorting us? Will he help or slow us down?" Lysera heard their concerns. She shared some of them, but she did not speak. Instead, she watched Kane closely, trying to understand what made humans so different. After 2 hours of travel, Elder Tivan checked the radar. His face turned pale. "They are following us," he said. "The war clan riders are fast." Lysera felt her heart beat faster. If they caught up, the escape team would be in trouble. Kane stood up slowly and spoke in a steady voice. "Princess, when they reach us, stay behind me. Do not move unless I tell you." Lysera raised an eyebrow. "You plan to face them alone?" Kane answered without fear. "If that is what it takes." For the first time, Lysera did not laugh. His voice carried a calm power she could not explain. It felt real. The transport slowed as the war clan riders appeared on the horizon. Dust clouds rose behind them. Their metal armor shined in the fading sunlight. Lysera gripped her seat. Kane stepped out of the vehicle. The princess watched him, her disbelief slowly turning into curiosity, deep, uncomfortable curiosity. She finally whispered, "Show me, human. Show me if your legends are true." The wind blew across the rocks. The riders approached fast. Kane stood still, waiting. And for the first time in her life, Princess Lysera wondered if the stories about humans were not myths at all. The mountain wind grew stronger as the war clan riders raced toward the escape group. Dust spun in the air, and the sound of engines echoed between the rocky cliffs. Princess Lysera stood behind the transport, her heart beating fast. She had seen danger before, but never this close. Never this sudden. Sergeant Kane stood in front of the group, silent and still. His calm presence felt strange to Lysera. The war clan riders were known for their speed and aggression. Even trained guards hesitated when facing them. But Kane looked as if he had been in situations like this many times. The first group of war clan riders slowed as they approached. Their helmets were decorated with sharp designs, and their vehicles had glowing red engines. One of them shouted something in his own language, a warning or a challenge. Kane didn't move. Lysera whispered to Elder Tivan. "Why is he waiting like that?" Tivan replied softly. "Humans are unusual fighters, Princess. They watch before they act." Lysera wasn't convinced. To her, it looked too risky. The rider in front pointed toward Lysera and shouted again. The war clan wanted the princess. They always targeted leaders to gain power. The guards tightened their formation around her, but the riders did not look at the guards. Their eyes stayed on Kane, as if trying to understand what this lone human planned to do. Then, without warning, the lead rider accelerated toward Kane. Lysera gasped. The guards shouted. Tivan reached forward in panic. Kane finally moved, but he didn't step back. He stepped forward. With a quick, controlled motion, he shifted his stance, placing his feet firmly on the ground. At just the right moment, he dodged the incoming vehicle with a smooth, precise turn. The rider passed him by, confused. Before the rider could turn back, Kane reached out and grabbed the side of the vehicle, using the rider's own speed to pull him off balance. The rider fell into the dust, rolling across the ground. Kane released him gently enough to avoid serious harm, but firmly enough to make a statement. Lysera stared with wide eyes. This was not luck. This was skill. The other riders stopped for a moment, surprised. Even they didn't expect a single person without armor, without heavy weapons to face one of their fastest vehicles and remain standing. Kane spoke calmly. "Princess, stay behind the transport. Guards, protect her." His voice was steady, not shaken by the danger around him. The next two riders charged at once. Kane stepped aside from one, lowered his stance, and used the rocky terrain to direct the second into a narrow gap. The rider tried to turn but lost balance, falling sideways. Kane moved quickly, helping the rider land safely before he stepped back again. "What kind of training do humans have?" Lysera whispered to Tivan. Tivan shook his head. "They say humans come from a world full of storms, mountains, and fierce creatures. Maybe this is normal for them." Lysera watched, stunned. Another group of riders approached, this time on foot. They carried energy spears and walked in a formation meant to intimidate. But Kane didn't look intimidated. He stood tall, his feet planted firmly, his hands ready. The first rider swung his spear. Kane ducked and stepped forward quickly. He moved past the rider, pushing the spear away with careful control. He did not strike back. He simply removed the weapon from the rider's hands and placed it on the ground. The War Clan fighters looked confused. Many species fought with anger or loud shouts, but Kane fought with quiet focus. He seemed to understand every movement of his opponents before they made it. He moved like someone who had practiced these motions thousands of times. Lysera watched as one rider tried to surprise Kane from behind. But Kane turned at the perfect second, stepped aside, and lightly pushed the attacker in a direction where he would land safely. It wasn't just a fight. It was a demonstration of control. Lysera's disbelief slowly melted away. She could no longer laugh. She could no longer deny the legends. Humans weren't dangerous because they were wild. They were dangerous because they understood danger better than anyone else. The riders eventually backed away, realizing they couldn't capture the princess with Kane standing there. They regrouped near their vehicles, frustrated and uncertain. A War Clan commander stepped forward. He was larger than the others, his armor decorated with silver marks. He shouted, pointing at Kane and then at Lysera. His meaning was clear. They wanted the princess. They wanted to continue the fight. Kane spoke gently to Lysera without turning around. "Princess, please get inside the transport. They may try again." Lysera felt something she had never felt before: trust. Not blind trust, but trust earned through action. "Kane," she said softly, "how did you learn to fight like this?" "Earth teaches us," Kane replied. "Our world is full of challenges. Danger trains us every day." Lysera took a slow breath. Earth, the world she had always thought was just a story, suddenly felt very real. Before the riders could attack again, Tivan shouted, "Princess, we must leave now. Another group of War Clan fighters is approaching from the south." Kane nodded. "I will cover your retreat. Get inside." The guards escorted Lysera into the transport. Kane moved to the back of the vehicle, watching the ridge closely. Two more groups of riders were closing in. But Kane understood the terrain now. He knew the narrow paths, the high rocks, the shadows where attackers could hide. He gave directions to the driver. "Take the left path. It's narrow, but they can't surround us there." The driver followed without hesitation. As the transport moved, Kane stayed outside on the small side platform, holding onto the rail, scanning the landscape with sharp eyes. Lysera watched him through the window. She had never seen someone remain so calm in danger. The War Clan chased them, but Kane guided the driver through tight turns and hidden routes. Slowly, the distance between them and the War Clan grew. After another hour, the transport finally reached a secluded valley where friendly guards waited for them. Lysera stepped out, still processing everything she had seen. Kane walked over and said calmly, "We are safe for now." Lysera looked at him with new eyes, not with doubt, not with mockery, but with respect. She spoke softly, "The legends, they are not lies." Kane gave a small smile. "Legends exaggerate. I'm only human, but humans do what they must." Lysera nodded slowly. For the first time in her life, she believed the stories. For the first time, she understood why the galaxy respected humans. And for the first time, she wanted to know more. The valley was quiet now, except for the wind moving through the rocks. Princess Lysera looked around, still catching her breath from the chase through the mountains. The Varan guards were inspecting their surroundings, and Sergeant Kane stood near the edge of the valley, watching carefully for any signs of the war clan. Lysera stepped closer to him. "Kane, how did you do it?" she asked softly. "How did you fight them like that? And remain calm?" Kane turned to her, his expression steady and calm. "Princess, humans learn to survive from a young age. We grow in a world full of challenges. Danger is part of life. Strength and focus come from experience." Lysera thought about his words. She had grown up listening to human myths, laughing at them. But now, standing here and seeing Kane in action, she realized that the stories were not lies, they were only the beginning of the truth. Humans were shaped by their world, and it made them stronger than anyone could imagine. Your people, your world, it must be very harsh, Lysera said quietly. And yet you survive. You thrive, Kane nodded. We do. But survival alone is not enough. We help each other. That is how we stay strong. Lysera's eyes widened. Humans were not just strong individually, they worked as a team. They fought with strategy, intelligence, and care. That made them far more dangerous than any myth could describe. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from the mountains. Kane's eyes narrowed. He signaled to the Varan guards to stay alert. Lysera's heart raced. She realized the war clan had not given up. A larger force was approaching. Kane looked at her. Princess, you must stay inside the transport. Follow my instructions, and you will be safe. Lysera nodded without hesitation. She trusted him completely now. The stories, the legends, they all paled compared to the reality she had just seen. Humans were not creatures to fear. They were allies to respect. The war clan appeared on the horizon, larger and faster than before. Their numbers were many, and their weapons glowed red under the setting sun. The Varan guards tensed, unsure how they could face such a force. Kane stepped forward, assessing the terrain quickly. The valley had rocky cliffs, narrow paths, and hidden passages. He could use these to his advantage. He directed the guards to strategic positions, showing them how to move and where to focus. Use the rocks for cover, Kane instructed. Move quickly, protect the princess first, strike only when necessary. The guards followed his orders. For the first time, they moved with confidence. Lysera watched from the transport, amazed at the transformation. Kane had not just fought the war clan, he had taught them how to fight. His knowledge, his instincts, and his calm presence inspired everyone around him. The battle began. The war clan charged, expecting fear. Instead, they faced a coordinated group. Kane moved like a shadow among the fighters, guiding the guards, blocking attacks, and protecting the princess. Each move was precise, each decision calculated. One of the war clan's fastest riders attempted to flank them from the side. Kane saw the movement instantly. He ran to intercept the rider, using his speed and knowledge of the terrain to force the attacker into a trap. The rider fell harmlessly into a pile of rocks. Stunned, but unhurt, Lysera could hardly believe what she was seeing. One human soldier was directing an entire defense, protecting everyone, and still moving with the grace and skill of a true warrior. Another group of war clan fighters tried to break through the left side. Kane signaled the Varan guards and moved quickly to block them. He didn't fight recklessly or show anger. He moved with strategy, knowing exactly where to stand, when to push, and when to let the attackers fall into their own mistakes. By the time the sun dipped behind the mountains, the war clan had no choice but to retreat. Their pride was wounded, and their forces were scattered. Kane had not just defended the princess, he had won the battle without unnecessary harm to anyone. After the fight, the valley was silent except for the wind. Dust and debris covered the ground, and the Varan guards were breathing heavily but smiling with relief. Lysera stepped out of the transport and approached Kane. You are incredible," she said, her voice full of admiration. "I thought humans were just myths. I thought the stories were exaggerations. But I was wrong. I have seen the truth. Kane looked at her with a calm smile. Legends often exaggerate, Princess. But humans do what they must. We fight to survive and to protect those who cannot defend themselves. Lysera's heart filled with respect. She had seen strength, courage, and intelligence all in one human. It was more than the legends had told. It was real. She turned to the Varen guards. Today, you have learned something important. Humans are not just stories. They are warriors, shaped by their world, guided by their hearts, and capable of inspiring others. Remember this lesson. The guards nodded, understanding the truth. Kane had not only saved them, he had shown them what humans could do, what humans truly were. Later, at the Royal Hall, the Galactic Council gathered to discuss the events. Lysera stood before the council, her presence calm but firm. She spoke clearly and confidently. Today, we face danger. We were protected by a human soldier. I have seen his strength, his intelligence, and his courage. The stories about humans are not myths, they are only the beginning of understanding them. Humans are strong, brave, and honorable. We are fortunate to have them among us. The council members murmured in agreement. Some had already suspected this, but hearing it from the princess herself made it real. Kane stood quietly at the back, modest and calm. He did not need praise. He had done what he must. That was enough for him. Lysera walked to him and said softly, "Thank you, Kane. Not just for today, but for showing me the truth about your people. I will never doubt the stories again." Kane nodded politely. "Thank you, Princess. Humans do what they can. That is all." Lysera smiled. For the first time, she understood the meaning behind the human legends. They were not exaggerations, they were warnings, lessons, and glimpses of a reality that few could imagine. From that day, the stories of human warriors were no longer myths in her eyes. They were a living truth, and she would tell them to her people for generations. As the sun set over the mountains, Lysera watched Kane walk calmly through the hall. She knew one thing clearly: humans were extraordinary, not because they were monsters or magic, but because they had the courage, skill, and heart to face any challenge and protect others in the process. And in that moment, Princess Lysera understood the real power of humans. They were more than legends. They were the galaxy's hidden strength. This completes Part 3. Concluding the story with a strong HFY moment, resolution, and deep respect for humanity. The valley had grown quiet after the war clan retreated, but the tension in the air remained. Princess Lysera could still feel her heartbeat, remembering the courage and skill of Sergeant Kane. Every movement he made during the battle had been precise, calm, and effective. She had watched him act not like a wild fighter, but like someone who understood danger better than anyone else. That evening, Kane walked with Lysera along the narrow path leading back to the transport. The sun had disappeared behind the mountains, and the sky glowed in shades of orange and purple. The wind carried the smell of dust and rock, mixed with the faint scent of wild plants. Lysera stayed quiet for a while, thinking about what she had seen. Finally, she spoke. "Kane, today, you saved us all. Not with anger, not with chaos, but with control. You were perfect." Kane shook his head slightly. "I am not perfect, Princess. I just do what must be done. Any human would act the same way in my place." Lysera frowned. "Any human? Are you saying all humans are like you?" Kane smiled lightly. "Not all. But many are shaped by their world. Earth is a harsh planet. We face danger every day, from storms, wild creatures, and other humans. We learn to survive. We learn to protect each other. That makes us strong." Lysera looked at him with new curiosity. "So, all humans are warriors in some way?" Kane nodded. "Strength does not always come from fighting. It comes from enduring. learning, and helping others. That is why humans can seem extraordinary to other species. The princess thought about the battle again. Cain had not just fought. He had taught the Varen guards to fight better. He had guided them, protected them, and inspired them. Humans were more than legends, they were leaders, even without command. As they approached the transport, Cain paused. Princess, before we leave, I want you to see something. Lysera raised her eyebrows. See what? He gestured toward a small clearing nearby. Watch closely. I want you to understand the way humans think about danger and teamwork. Curious, Lysera stepped closer. Cain took a deep breath, then ran toward a group of rocks and leapt over them with fluid precision. He landed without making a sound, then turned to demonstrate a series of defensive movements. Each movement was calculated, controlled, and deliberate. He ducked, blocked imaginary strikes, and moved swiftly between positions. Lysera watched in awe. The movements were not flashy or violent. They were practical, efficient, and beautiful in their simplicity. Cain was showing her that human strength was not just physical, it was mental, strategic, careful. You see, princess, Cain explained. Humans fight to survive and protect others. We do not rely on anger. We rely on observation, patience, and understanding. Lysera nodded slowly. She had read about tactics and strategy in her history lessons, but seeing them in action was entirely different. Humans were not just strong, they were smart, disciplined, and capable of adapting to anything. That night, as the transport moved back to the palace, Lysera could not stop thinking about Cain and the humans. She had grown up laughing at the stories, thinking humans were exaggerations. Now, she realized she had been wrong. Humans were real, and they were extraordinary in a way that no legend could fully explain. She walked to the back of the transport where Cain was quietly watching the stars. Cain, she said, I want to understand your people. Not just the warriors, but all humans. How do you survive on Earth? How do you grow so strong? Cain turned to her with a calm expression. Earth is a teacher. Every day there are challenges, storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals, even conflicts among humans. Children learn to be strong because they must. They learn to cooperate because survival depends on it. We grow tough, but we also grow caring. Strength without compassion is useless. Lysera nodded. The idea of strength and compassion together fascinated her. Many species she had studied in the galaxy valued power alone, often ignoring others. Humans were different. They fought not for glory or conquest but for survival and protection. She felt a new sense of respect. The myths she had laughed at were only a small part of the truth. Humans were warriors, shaped by their world, and their courage inspired everyone around them. The next morning, the princess and Cain walked through the palace gardens. The war clan had not returned, but the city was on alert. Guards were patrolling, and council members discussed future security measures. Lysera turned to Cain. Will the humans stay here, in the capital? Cain shook his head. Our mission is to attend the council meetings and ensure peace. We do not seek conflict, princess. But we act when it is needed. Lysera smiled. I understand. But today, you acted not just as a warrior, but as a teacher and a protector. I have never seen anyone like you. Cain looked thoughtful. Humans often surprise others. But we do what must be done, princess. That is enough for us. Lysera paused, then said softly, No, Cain. It is more than enough. You have shown me that humans are more than legends. You have shown me that humans are capable of greatness beyond imagination. I want the galaxy to know this too. Cain's expression remained calm. It is not for humans to boast. We act quietly. Others may tell the stories, but we simply live them. Lysera nodded. She understood now. Humans were extraordinary not because they sought recognition, but because they acted with courage, intelligence, and care. Over the next few days, Lysera spent time observing Kane and the human delegation. She watched them teach Varen guards how to move safely, how to think ahead, and how to protect their people. She watched humans interact politely with the council, always respectful yet confident. The princess realized that humans were different in every way. They were strong, not because of their size, but because of their mind and heart. They inspired loyalty without demanding it. They led without arrogance. And they fought not for glory, but to protect life. Lysera thought back to the legends she had heard as a child. The stories had only hinted at the truth. Humans were not just warriors, they were teachers, protectors, and examples of what courage and discipline could achieve. She smiled quietly to herself. The myths were real, but the reality was even greater. Humans were more than stories. They were proof that strength and heart could exist together. As Kane stood nearby, watching the guards practice, Lysera felt a deep sense of admiration. She had laughed at humans before. Now, she respected them more than anyone else she had ever met. And she knew one thing clearly. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. But she would never make that mistake again. Princess Lysera had seen a human warrior fight, teach, and inspire. And she had learned the most important lesson of all. Humans were extraordinary, not because of myths, but because of who they were and what they could become. This concludes Part 4, focusing on deeper HFY elements, human intelligence, teamwork, strategy, and inspiration. If you want, I can now write Part 5, the final part, to conclude the story with the strongest HFY message, showing humans fully earning respect across the galaxy.